Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Welcome back to the Foundation Paper Piecing Series 2. This time it's for the month of May, and of course with Mother's Day being in May, I could not resist flowers, and I love pink. I love all the colors, but this time it's a combination of pink and purple with an Appliqué Center, a prefused laser cut. Maybe this is the first time you're getting a chance to use some laser cut shapes. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But, you know, this series is really back by customer request. We kicked it off last year I guess it was in our April project. I think we released that in March. People went crazy, and I love that people are enjoying foundation paper piecing. So if you have a friend that is still resisting, don't let them get away with that. I tried that for more than a couple decades until someone said, "This is silly, Jen. Let me show you how fun this is." And they were so right, and I love it. I love doing it. How fun to do a project, right, that's done in a day. So again, as I said, this is for Series 2. This is the May project. But if you're wanting to go back and collect all of the kits from the first series, don't delay. Some of them have sold out. I'm beginning to recolor those. But this is the project we did for the first series for May. It was a beautiful purple rose. So this time for this series, whereas the first series we did one block with a frame, for this series, as you can see, we have 4 blocks with a sashing each time, but I did it even a little bit different. As we kicked off our Foundation Series 2, we did butterflies for the first month. This was a 6-inch block with a sashing. This time, we have a block that has just a little bit of a frame around it. Super easy to do, but I want to take you through that so we don't leave any stone unturned and you can be successful and have fun. As you know, when you pick up our kits, talk about value added. You're not only getting this exact fabrics, including your backing and your binding, but you're also getting this pattern. The pattern is so valuable. Everything's in full color, and it will include your foundation paper piecing papers. So many times, a lot of books and patterns do not include that. You have to go out. You have to buy the paper and then go out and Xerox that. We include that. This is the Carol Doak foundation paper. And we also include stickers. So as you make your cuts per the pattern, look at all the cuts here for the white. Look at all those cuts. You're not going to be able to keep track of them. Make a cut sticker, make a cut and sticker. Once you've done that, let's just jump right into making our block. This is so easy. We'll be making the A portion of our block. Let me just show you where we're going with this. So we're making this portion. B, C, and D will already have been done for us, but let's go ahead and make this one together. So I grabbed my piece A, I just cut that away from the larger piece of the foundation paper that we printed, and there's my fabric with my sticker. Leave those stickers on until you get ready to use the shape. I definitely have learned that. You need just a little bit of glue, and we're always going to be putting the fabric on the back side of the paper, so we keep seeing the letters and the numbers. We'll just place that on there. Now this is a beautiful batik. Not all of the fabrics in your kit will be batik. Some are and some are screen printed, but I couldn't resist just the confluence of those colors coming together and making our beautiful flowers. Once you have that, remember our TSP, trim, sew, and press. So we know A1 is the main part of the block, and A2, of course, is going to be going on next. So I'm just going to grab my add a quarter ruler. Remember, it has the lip. Its first function is to act as a nice, rigid tool to be able to fold back our paper and give it a good crease. Once you've done that, now this add a quarter lip here, show that from above, locks into place, just like that. And we make a trim. This is now exposing this next area that will have a white fabric here. Again, we wait till we take our sticker off and we put that on. Now let's look at this. This will need to just make sure, just a reminder, that we're not just trying to cover the triangle you see, but you want to visualize a 1/4 inch all the way around that to make sure you have full coverage, and we have that. So as we look at this, we'll place this right side together so that once this is sewn on, we have, and it's pressed back, we have covered all the 1/4 inch all the way around. So let's go ahead. I still want to just remind you, if you didn't catch the first series and this is the first time, this is your first series, for sure you're going to want to go back and watch the butterfly one where I go into really great detail. But let's go ahead and cover this. Just some pointers, some reminders. I'm sewing with the gray thread that's in the Aurifil thread set. I have a size 70 needle in here. Let me just show you this Microtex needle right here. This needle just pierces this paper and really perforates it, making it far more easier to remove. And I'm also sewing on a shortened stitch length. I have a 1.5. That's going to help us really be able to get a lot of threads in here, because as we remove the paper later on, we don't want to unseat those stitches, so we're putting in a lot more thread. Now, while the line starts here, we're going to start a couple stitches before, stitch directly on the line, and go a couple stitches after. Scoot over here so I'm lined up. Now I'm going to take that seam guide off. We don't need that right now. So you have a choice of finger pressing or ironing. If you are like, I don't really like to iron each step, maybe my iron isn't near my sewing machine, mine kind of isn't, I have to definitely get up each time. You can just press this back. I'll move this out of the way just so you can see that a little bit better. And you could use the Clover roll and press or another tool you might have right here. It works fine. If you're like, nope, I want a hard crease in there, iron that. That's your preference. That's completely your preference. Just know that sometimes with any printed foundation paper piecing, sometimes that ink can transfer, especially when it's hot. So just be mindful of that you're not transferring any ink here and potentially bringing in a white fabric later and maybe smudging it. So that's just something to think about. Let's look back here. Now our next is, so we've trimmed, we sewed, and we pressed. And now we TSP again. We bring our outer 1/4 ruler, the nice crisp edge. Let's roll back, press, make sure we got it right. Bring our outer 1/4, trim. In comes our A3. And we know our job is to make sure we've got that once this is sewn on, we have good coverage. That'll extend all the way to the corners. Keep in mind, it's just the dash line. Not all, I could have trimmed this paper much closer. In fact, let me do that so you see what I'm talking about. The only edge you're trying to get to is that dash line. I was just generous with when I cut my papers out here. Because as we could cut very close to that. I was just cutting it out. What we're trying to do is just make sure that we have coverage to that dash line. Let's put that in place. Let me check it one more time. Sometimes you have to scoot them down. I have missed those a few times, making some assumptions, and I was not correct. Let's go ahead and sew that. Trim, sew, press. Trim, sew, press. You can finger press and roll and press. Or if you're like, nope, I'm an iron gal or guy, however that is, you'll now have this. And you're like, that looks so weird. And it looks weird to me every time, by the way, until it's all put together. Does it reveal that this is what it should be looking like? Now we'll grab a smaller ruler here. And this is where a spinning mat comes in pretty handy. Not absolutely, do or die by any means, but I always like being able to not have to lift up the project. But again, If you don't have a spinning mat, this would not be the reason to run out and get one. Now our block is all squared up, and I recommend at this point leaving that paper on. There's some really important information on it, and I'm going to go into that in just a moment. So this is our A piece, and we've done our B, C, and D. Now, if I just flip these over, I could probably look at my photo and go, okay, the orientation looks like that, and I think this is right, and I'm pretty sure that is right. But I'm going to show you something else we've done to help you confirm that that is correct. I'm going to flip these over, and I want to point out something that we printed on our paper. Notice how this part says, this is the A portion, this side joins section C. Notice this is section C. This side joins A. Hey, we have a connection there. This side joins D, and this side joins B. You get the idea that this just helps you confirm one more time before you start sewing that together. And it doesn't not matter whether you sew top to bottom or left to right. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to flip these over so we can look at that the way we normally would when we get ready to piece something together. So as you would expect, right side together, and we're going to pin. Definitely leave your papers on when you're doing this portion. Only when this entire thing is sewn together, but before the borders, we will take the papers off. But I want to do this step with you. I want you to see the whole process. And you could certainly see this in even greater detail by watching the video last month, but let's go ahead and have some fun sewing these together. So now we have our two halves sewn together. Still, we will not remove that paper, not yet. We'll just press that seam open. Best we can. And same here. I have learned when I first was trying foundation paper piecing, I'm like, I don't like sewing with this paper on. And there was a lot of bias cuts. I took the paper off and it was all kinds of unstable. That block didn't come out so well. So there's a lot of reason to keep the paper on at this point. Okay, that's on the bottom. We have this on the upper portion. Great to go back and visually check, is that looking like my site picture? And yes, it is. So now as we place these together, the place I care the most about is absolutely going to be that center seam. Now the great news is, remember that the center seam is covered up with an applique. So if you're off just a little bit, easy peasy, no worry, it's going to be covered up. But still, I like to just work on precision in the center where the seam's coming together. And then we'll pin the corners. Let's see our flower. Isn't that pretty? And we will press that open again. And this is where we just start to remove the papers. I won't bore you with that. You know, sometimes if you need to kind of score that, just make sure you're not seam ripping your fabric Just putting a little bit of a tear in there to get it going. So let me go ahead and get that removed. And then the next thing we're going to be doing is our border fabric that's coming around, our beautiful, again, this is a Riley Blake. It's got the gold metallic flecks. It's so pretty. I couldn't resist that. Make sure that you are cutting those precisely to size, your 2 side borders and your top and bottom for each of the blocks. So while you're getting that cut, I'm going to go ahead and get the paper removed, and then let's come back and we'll sew those borders on together. So here is our block. I've removed the paper. If you have any areas that are hard to get to, right? In fact, I just saw one. This one. Grab the Gypsy Quilter tweezers. They just get in those places where our fingers just don't really fit. Give it a good press again. I can do that. And now it's time for borders. Let's make sure we're oriented like our pattern, like this. Side borders are coming on first. Here. And then after that, we'll be applying the top and bottom borders. So of course, as I place this right side together, I would love to sew on this side, but I don't have a visual on those seams on the bottom. And so for that, I will flip this over and make sure that I'm keeping an eye on that. And if I had that, what's called a purple thing, you might have seen me use that in some previous videos. It's a great way to keep those seam allowances down as the presser foot approaches. I might keep these tweezers with me just in case I have any problems with that today, so I can keep my fingers away. And we'll pin, pin, pin. You could do both sides. By all means, there's no reason you can't be sewing both of those on at the same time. In fact, I'll get one sewn on, I'll do the other one, then we'll do the top and bottom borders, and our block will be done. And we could do a little bit of adding the applique. So sewing from this side, this is where I will use my seam guide. I know to the right, because I've checked my machine, just to the right of that diagonal seam tape along that block line, I know when I put my seam guide, I'm tracking a true quarter. As you guys know, I've confessed, my miss is sewing a generous 1/4 inch. I can see I forgot to increase my seam allowance, so I sewed the borders on with a 1.5 inch stitch length. Actually, I don't know if it's a 1.5, it's a 1.5. I know that just happened. That's okay, right? If I have to seam rip it, it's going to just take a lot more effort, but that's all right. Now we'll press, and you can imagine you're going to be pressing away from that flower block. No seam wants to press back on top of itself. You can see the seam wanting to lay over naturally. And so let that happen. Press to the outside. And I will sew this other one on. And I want to show you that with some very precise piecing with foundation, and if you're cutting your border strips right, everything's going to just click right together. So I want to show that to you, that foundation paper piecing, if you're new to quilting, absolutely do this. The foundation paper piecing really takes so much of the precision needed for traditional patchwork almost out of the equation. Obviously, as we sew these border strips on, we do need to be accurate with the 1/4 inch, but we have aids to help us get there. So let me get this sewn on, press the outside, and then let's just take a check and see if that outer borders strips fit perfectly, as I hope they will, as long as I'm going to track true to this 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we will have one of our 4 blocks done, and you can see this is why it's possible to get this project done in even less than a full day. Oh, I missed a pin. Press to the outside. Okay, once we have that, look how that just fits. It just fits. For sure, we would be pinning in the corner. When you know it has to just fit, like don't be tempted to trim down your border pieces. How many times have I done that as a young quilter? I didn't really, and then I was doing a patchwork quilt, and now every block was a little bit of a different size. And when you get ready to sew them together, you have a pretty good mess on your hands. Make the block fit the borders as long as you know the borders have been cut exactly as they should be. That's why I'm going to trim, or actually not trim, I'm going to pin in that corner. And then I just ease that in just like that. Just like that. Because I double check the length of those and I know that's the right size, right? And we need all these blocks to be the same size going into this for the sashing to fit and everything else to fit. So just like I've done, 1/4 inch seam allowance, press the outside, same. Right side together, pin in this corner, pin in this corner, make everything else fit, press the outside. Once you have that done, this is what your block will look like. And if you want to have a different, if you want the light purple in the upper left corner, fantastic. It's a square. You can do anything you want. But now we get to do that fun applique element here. Perfectly cut for you. No need to get heat and bond. Light, no need to trace and cut. To remove the paper, just give a good press back, and you can see that nice shine. You can just position that exactly where you want it. And generally with fusible applique, I'm using a medium heat. It's not the end of the world if your iron's on a full hot. It's not like this is a big intricate applique project. One little applique shape in the middle. Once you have that done, now you prepare the rest of your blocks. Then in comes our sashing strips and our cornerstone in the middle. If that's new to you, again, check out last month where we covered that when we made our beautiful butterflies. Then after that's done, we'll line our fusible fleece or batting behind our piece top. The backing comes in, and that's when we decided to go ahead and do a little bit of that top quilting, and you're able to accentuate all the work you've done. Look at the cute little stitch around the center there. And that's a blanket stitch. You could choose something else. You could do a satin stitch, straight stitch, but be sure to pick up that thread set. And we got all of our quilting done, trimmed it up, then came the binding. How will you display yours? Do you think you want to have that on the stand? Do you want that on the French curl, or maybe something else altogether? Who knows? You could be making a pillow out of this if you want to. But the most important thing is to jump into the fun, because if you're like me and I was dragging my feet forever to learn this, let that go away. This is too much fun to miss. Be sure to pick up your kits. We are seeing those sell out. I am actively, as I mentioned, working on recoloring so we can just keep the fun going really as the years progress, and make sure that those kits are still available for you. Get your kit, your thread set, any notions you might need, and subscribe. Let a friend know, and I look forward to seeing you next month as we continue our series for June.